Hello and welcome, Exiles, to episode 2 of what I'm calling Project Gorf. Gorf being the Garf emote, but it's just like a chunkier, thicker Gorf. Basically, the whole project idea is to see how high we can get the HP number to go. We made a lot of money with valid maps. I figured we'd reinvest and see just how far life we could get the number to go up. I did a project called Gagarf back in Crucible League, which was bog funded, where we got a lot of people donating to make perfect gear to make this Giga Chad RF character. This time, I'm just stacking a bunch of life and seeing how far we can get it because of the new Warlock Ascendancy that allows you to get a bunch of flat life more than you normally could. On top of that, we got the new Adorn Jewel, which in my opinion is just the best in slot for basically every build in the game. Now, honestly, it's so good, it almost makes it kind of boring to plan builds because the optimal way to plan builds with Adorned is just voices. It's just kind of degenerate money spending and getting magic jewels where you have synth implicits and you corrupt them so you can get a massive amount of stats just for one magic jewel, and then you just replicate that all over the tree. This isn't a particularly well thought out tree. It's just kind of the adorned magic jewel stacking. It's so strong. It's how you optimize it. It feels wrong. It feels weird, but at the same time, it's the right way to do it. I don't know how to explain it, but it is what we're dealing with right now. Now, this character, rest in peace, Hirono SRS, sent to the void. Maybe it was on purpose. Maybe he died. I don't know. But anyways, our character, we have about 4,000 strength. And the idea is we are just trying to get as much flat life, as much strength, and then as much percent life as possible into the build. Obviously, we have all these jewels with percent life and strength, which gives us a lot of flat life and a lot of percent life. And then we combine that with having a lot of strength stacking items. Now, I will say this. If you want to get the peak highest HP number, which I think I'll probably demonstrate maybe in my final video, to get that, it's actually going to be using an amulet called Untouched Souls and then having all your sockets unequipped and red. This gives you more life than you can get out of Simplex, but it's the difference in having a usable build and kind of an unusable build. Untouched Soul is too expensive socket-wise to be good in most characters. I will say there's one character that gets away with it, and that's Relic of the Pact. I haven't seen any other build, I think, that can actually get away with using that amulet. Relic of the Pact gets away with using it, and he uses it well. For example, we could do a Relic of the Pact version. I might do that. I'm not sure if I want to or not yet. I'm right now just trying to get the life number as high as possible. For example, right now we're a bit inefficient for stacking life because we're using a Mage Blood. I just wanted to do this initially just so we could level faster. Now that I'm at a decent level, I think we're going to end up making a rare belt because Mage Blood doesn't really do much for life stacking. We have a percent strength corruption, and that's about it. Whereas if we had a rare belt, we could have a Stygian Vise with an Abyssal Socket, 14% attributes, 70 flat strength, 10% life, and 99 flat life. So we get way more scaling for a life build with a rare belt than a Mage Blood. That's probably what we'll update to next. And on top of that, I'm only level 94. We're going to get some more levels. We're going to get like the life mastery for 10% more. There's things we're going to improve. I'm pretty sure we're going to just blow past 50k today when I stream it. But the idea is we're just pumping the number as high as we can go. And we're going to see how high we can get it as a usable character. And then we might show off some weird setups where we're just trying to get the number as high as possible. I believe if you know Marcus, who does a lot of theory crafting for the endgame project, MP does a lot, where he does like just pushing one stat to the moon. He theory crafted, I think, a POB where he had 84,000 life. I don't know, maybe he's improved it since then, but that is with perfect synth gear, completely optimized and unreasonable things to get. For example, just to give you a little context here of what this build requires if you're really going to push it to the absolute limit. The optimal jewel would be a 5 synth implicit strength and then a 6 synth implicit life. The problem with doing this is you have to replicate it about 20 times or something to get all your jewel sockets filled in with the jewels. Now, I've done synth strength on about 15 jewels, and let me tell you, that was painful enough as is, because every time you go to corrupt a jewel, you have about, I want to say it's a 20% survival rate or something. It's not good. The likelihood it corrupts to you a unique or a rare are pretty high, and the likelihood you brick your implicit is also pretty high. So to craft these things successfully, you have to one alt spam, which is about a 2,000 alt spam commitment, along with augments and annuls and whatnot. Then on top of that, you have to corrupt it, which means you have to use a Hinekora lock, and on average, you're going to use like 3 just to make sure you don't brick your implicit, which that's expensive by itself. And you have to do that 20 times. But the thing is, if I was doing a jewel that had flat strength and flat life, those would need to be made by Vivid Vultures. So, for example, his POB has the 6 life and the 5 strength on all his magic jewels. That's just crazy. Somebody who would do that would need to dedicate their entire league gameplay to Vivid Vulture crafting those jewels or something. And on top of that, you might not have enough. Well, you wouldn't have the resources. You'd have to be getting funneled money to do it. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to go far enough to go with the 5 strength jewels and have some fun with it. But that's the idea. Now, what are the benefits of stacking life? What can you do to take advantage? How does my character deal damage? There are a few things that all just work when it comes to life stacking. Number one, and the strongest part of life stacking, is probably one of my favorite uniques in the game, Wrathpith Globe. It gives you 5% damage and 5% crit per 100 life. You'll notice our character has 40,000 life. When you get to these insane life numbers, this shield by itself gets you crit cap. If you have 5% base crit, but you have 2,000% crit chance, you are at 100% crit chance. You don't need crit anywhere else on your tree. Normally, builds would have to spend multiple passives, going into power charges, going into Assassin's Mark, all these sorts of things, getting crit chance support, whatever it is, to try to get a crit cap. This shield gets you there. And on top of that, you have 2,000% damage. That's a lot. Most builds that are pretty good builds get to 500 to 1,000% range. This blows right past that. Now, we don't just stop there. When you have strength stacking, you also get a lot of scaling out of the strength itself. For example, you'll notice on my mace, and the specific reason I'm using a mace is the Elder mod on the mace is the only place this occurs. You can get 3% AoE per 50 strength. With 4,000 strength, that's around 250-ish % AoE, which means even though I have no AoE on my tree at all, I actually have more AoE than most builds can get. So for example, we have, for the showcase, I did an Awakened Spell Cascade with the Firestorm of Meteors, a pretty big skill, just because it looks hilarious. That is the AoE coverage you get. The entire screen just blowing up like a nuke because of strength scaling. But strength scaling doesn't stop there. You also get things like Iron Will, which gives you 1% per 8 strength. You'll notice we have 4k strength, so that gives us, not 1% per 8 strength. That's actually wrong. It's 1% per 5, which means we're getting about 800% damage from this one node here. So that's about 50% more damage on top of the 2,000% spell damage you have here. And it doesn't stop there. Strength Stack Amulet, you get a 2% per 15, which is another like 500-600% damage or whatever it is. The point I'm trying to make is, even though our character is not really grabbing damage on the tree, just because we're investing into all this strength ends up giving us that scaling to really, really have a lot of damage scaling, along with crit capping, along with all that sort of nonsense. Now, on top of all of that, the cherry on the top, what I'm currently screwing around with, what I'm messing around with, is a support gem I wanted to do last league when it came out, but I didn't really get around to it. Well, I tried one attempt with, I did a one attempt with Ignite, which I was just kind of trolling with. I always knew deep down Sacrifice was going to be best in slot for something like a Wrathpith build, because you actually get crit and percent damage enough scaling to make it work. And the way this thing works is essentially it's giving you 45% of 20% of your life. So it's about 9% of your life pool as base damage. So for example, when we have 40,000 life, this thing right here is giving us about 4,000 flat damage. You pop that on to a meteor, Firestorm Meteors. This skill, for example, has 370% effectiveness. You multiply the number we have here, I think it's by 4.7. You multiply that flat 4K by 4.7, ends up giving you a lot of flat chaos damage. That's the way it works. That's how it ends up making your damage actually pretty sizable. You'll notice on our tooltip isn't particularly anything impressive. It says 1.3 million. You'll notice on the tooltip it says 2 to 3,000 chaos. That's not actually telling us how much damage we really have, because sacrifice support is dependent on how much life you spend, because as you spend your life down, it's giving less and less damage. You see, if we spend it all the way down, it ends up giving less damage. The idea is your tooltip won't tell you how much flat chaos it gives. If it did, this number would be much, much higher based on that sacrifice flat damage, but it can't know, because it never knows what HP number we're going to be at and how much we're going to be sacrificing, so it can't give you that number on the tooltip. All right, now, after all of that, the project, hopefully, I think we can get a usable, good character. I'm thinking somewhere in between the 50 and 60k range. I would like to see if we can get this character to 69,420 life, but I think to do that, I'm going to have to make the character a bit less good, so to speak. For example, I think we might have to do Untouched Souls. We might have to drop the Simplex, which is going to be dropping us damage to get that life number high enough. And then on top of that, I believe it's going to require a Quiver. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't 100% gone through all the optimizations, but my brain tells me this quiver, if I was, well, full context, I'm trying to roll this for T1 flat strength to get 20 flat strength, but I spent about 2,000 divines at the Vivid Vulture prison, lost my sanity, and didn't improve the quiver at all. So, but anyways, the point is, this quiver with a essence of strength, or essence of rage to get flat strength, T1 life, so you have 58 strength, 99 life, you have the implicit, which is 5% strength, 8% life, and eventually 20 flat strength if we get there, and then bench crafted all attributes. You have that quiver, and then you put on a Widow Hail with 250% effect, which effectively multiplies all the values on this thing by 3.5. I believe that gives you the strongest life scaling package possible. Now, I could be wrong. It could be something like a rare shield like this, where you have a bunch of flat ES and a bunch of flat life, and you min-max that. I might theory craft around with trying that out. I'm not sure yet. Haven't decided which one I'm going to go for. But anyways, all I'm saying is the best version of the build is probably with Wrath Pith. You're not going to get as much life scaling, but you're going to have all your damage and your crit solved, and it just works out. But as far as pushing the life number to the highest possible, I'm going to see if I can do that. Maybe won't be as a practical build, but that's the future goals of the character. Today we'll be getting a rare belt, swapping probably to Pathfinder Ascendancy on Scion, getting some res flask, so we're still capped even though we're not using a Mage Blood, and losing a little bit of that sweet movement speed that Mage Blood gives you. Anyways, this is the life stacking project I'm working on. So far, 42,000 life, 4K strength, and about level 94. Pretty sure we're going to get past 50 and still be a pretty good usable build. After 50,000, or after that, I think you have to start becoming impractical, but maybe we could get to 69,420 would be a nice goal to hit. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this update to the project. I'll give you guys a little showcase of a park map real quick here of just running around and blowing things up. You'll notice on my character, I actually invested into recharge rate in a few different places. And the reason I did that is because our life sustain is our life recharge rate. And the thing is, the way this works is we have Wrath Pith, which sacrifices 10% of life, and our skill, which sacrifices 20% of life with sacrifice support. So we need a lot of sustain in order to pay the cost to do the damage. And that's why we have recharge rate on gear pieces. Ultimately, having bench crafted all attributes will scale us to a higher HP number. But for right now, I'm just screwing around with a little bit higher recharge rate in order to sustain the cast of sacrifice and have a practical use case of the build. Ultimately, if I had that in mind when I was making the gear pieces you see here and here, I probably would have gone for actual recharge rate, the roll that can go up to like 38% on gear pieces, but I didn't really think that far ahead and forgot I was going to end up doing recharge rate as my, forgot I was going to need that recharge rate to sustain sacrifice support, that is. Basically, this skill we can sock it in pretty much any skill that isn't, well, with sacrifice, you have the limitations of it doesn't work with brands, orb skills, or, what's the other one? Brands, orb skills, channeling. Basically, sacrifice support has limitations, so there's only certain skills that work with it. The thing is, this package will work with a lot of other skill gems as well, besides just sacrifice. You could also do this with just a regular skill, actually scale some gem levels. You'd probably still get good damage, and that's the idea of the character. Anyways, this is the Gorf project. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out.